Well, hello there. This is Shane with Shane's Reviews, and I hope you are having a great day today. How have you been? It feels like forever since I got to sit in this chair, make my little squeaky noises, and give you guys some information about a book. So, hope you're staying safe, hope you're staying healthy. Today we're going to be talking about Paul Wilson, but before you go, it's not what you think. Actually, the name of the book is An Enemy of the State. Now, this book was originally released, I think it was back in like 1980, so it's been around for quite some time. And it's kind of funny, in the Audible version, there's this prequel, or just this really nice narration that the author of the book gives about this book, because apparently it's been a driving force of aggravation for him ever since he wrote it. But it has to do with the content of the book. So typically the things that we cover will be more like space, sci-fi, adventuring, rah-rah shoot 'em up, and or detective slash mystery. You know what we do here. Why am I telling you? You're here, you know. So it was narrated by Greg Tremblay. So he does a really good job with the narrations. There's no problem with it. Nothing out of the ordinary or crazy that would make you go, oh my God, what are you doing with your voice at this point in time in my ear? But the content of the book is a lot different from what we would normally cover here. And so let's get into that. The reason why I say it's different is we could take this book and we could substitute all this like imperial, or it's from this galaxy and these planets, and just give them names of states and countries and that kind of a thing, and the book would still work. There's not a whole lot of space travel. There's not a whole lot of alien influence. There's not that typical trope that we enjoy whenever it comes to these sorts of things. So it's really different in that regard. But to have wrote a book like this in 1980, this man has some huevos. I mean, he's got some spine. He's got that big person energy, if you know what I mean. And I probably spell for guys and gals. Don't misunderstand. But this dude, he hits it, and he hits it out of the park with this book. It's kind of redolent to me, or it makes me think of like, well, books 1984, Animal House, or stuff like that. Not necessarily satirical in its way that it was wrote, but more of a, well, even Ayn Rand. Some of her things, it makes me think of that as well, because it's so prophetic, not pathetic, prophetic. There we go. It has to do with the way that he was thinking about economy, the way that things could work and how things could go out and off track, especially the way that the financial system was set up and in the early 80s, because it was, for most people, finance, especially in America, we are so guilty in our education system to not prepare people for when they get out of the education system. It's a bone. I chew on that bone. It aggravates me. I think it might actually be part of my sleep.
Yes, Shane. Give in to the demon. That is the Board of Education.
But he covers this concept of, if these checks and balances in an economy aren't in place, what would actually happen? So if you've got a core planet civilization, and we'll stick with the way that he wrote it instead of trying to change it and keep up with what I say, because that's just not going to work. But it's that core planet is Earth, and then there's the outside planets, or the ring planets, or whatever you want to call it, just places that are different, and the economies, the way that they're affected by each other. So, you know, if this civilization's doing really good, it doesn't mean that this civilization's doing really good, because they might need stuff that these people have, and it might drive them into being a society that is always in complete and total economic ruin, because they're having to import more than they're exporting. And that's the reason why I was saying we could substitute planets with countries and states, etc. Because there's places where that's a true statement now on planet Earth. But the thing that I found that was like the biggest, like, screw you jab to the future, but he nailed it, was that this might be a little controversial. I don't want it to be misunderstood. Whenever I talk about this next part, I'm not actually talking about us. Let's say that it's a fictional place. just to keep in line with this being a review. But essentially, they have so many government subsidies on this place that isn't the core planet. And they're having trouble keeping up because they want to make sure that nobody is left behind, that everybody has equal rights to owning and buying and the same buying power on paper. In actuality, the government is really concerned about how much money they're able to bring in and how they can extort and tweak these sorts of things. Now, there's a perfect example from the book to kind of give the flavor of how it's set up and not the financial situation, the planet's situations best. This could be a good outcome, and it has to do with the way that they were handing out the food vouchers. So there's the entire organization that does the food vouchers, where it has people that are cleaning the floors or printing the tickets, the materials to print them, etc. All these things add up, and the government structure is so much of a behemoth, so many people work there, that in order for somebody to get a $2,000 subsidy, then it would cost them $3,400, and then that $2,000 is taxed from the person getting the subsidy. So they don't actually get $2,000, they get more like $1,600 or $1,400 after the taxing. And so not only are the people of that planet paying for all of that.
Yes, I couldn't help but agree. The king's taxation is theft.
But the people receiving the benefits are being taxed for it. And it's set up in a way where the system isn't fraudulent, but is being ran by people that are fraudulent and causing all kinds of issues, knowingly on some parts, turning a blind eye on others. And whenever they actually try to come together to start to solve the issue, the argument of, well, who's going to give up something first starts. Now, that sounds like a boring book, but this isn't, oddly enough, and there's reasons for that. Robin Hood is a thing in this universe.
Yes, my liege, I heard you call for me. Robin Hood.
There's a gentleman that you'll figure it out. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to give you anything about it. But the stories that are inside of this, and it is one long continuous story. It's not like it's broke up in between different people and different things, but you'll find that overlying it's centric of this. And that's the way that everything congeals. It's one timeline of a story. It's not back and forth or anything like that either. So if that's not your thing, that won't bother you, because that's not what this book is. As far as the way that the book wraps up, I kind of liked it. I think if he had tried to do anything different with it on the wrap up of the book, it really wouldn't have worked. Now, it's going to aggravate some people, and some people are going to get very upset whenever particular things come around. But however, for the way that I view things, and I know some of you do too, on people being true to the story, being true to the characters, this was the ending that should have been there for this book. So I'm not going to complain about it at all. I'm not even going to make any suggestions. I'm not. I don't have to, because it is what it is. Is it the Magnus Opus? No. However, the whole reason why this review is here is because Lynette had asked me if Paul Wilson had other books that weren't in a series or was outside of what we were reading. And so it got me curious, and I started looking around, and I found this one. And at the time that I found it, to be fair, it wasn't a series. I got to say that. At least I don't think it was. But as a one-off book from Paul Wilson, this works. You don't have to read the whole series, but this book is not done in the same way that the other books, like Repairman Jack, that I had been reading. It's not the same at all. There's no leaning into already known established pathways. This book is really well thought out whenever it comes to what would happen if. And that was the thing that really kept me going on it, because at first I was like, I think I'll just skip this one and see if I can find a different Paul Wilson book that is a standalone. But I'm glad that I didn't, because it's interesting to see some of his thoughts and formulations comes around in our actual lives today. It's absolutely amazing how he put that thumb right on the head of the nail and then smashed his thumb with the hammer. It really is. If you do decide to read it, though, there's a few things that I'm not going to tell you about that'll be surprises. There's a couple of things with illustration whenever it comes to the relationships in between particular people that are grown up, that grow up with particular things. And then the whole movement. Kifu, I think is what he called it. And it's not Kung Fu. There's no way I can go about that without offending the greater gods of YouTube. Because they don't know. They don't know exactly what it is. And I'm just sorry, I can't. I was trying to figure out a way around that. And sure, there's all kinds of acronyms I could come up with, but none of them will have the punch because for the most part, the book is very clean in its dialect. It's very straightforward about what it's trying to say. The characters are as well. I don't remember a whole lot of this type of stuff in it, so whenever it happened, it had that punch to make you think about it. And that delivery, for me, that was my payout at that moment. The rest of the book, I was like, okay, I'm good. I've had a very satisfactory moment. Now, thank you so very much, PaulWilson. I very much appreciate it. You, sir, get the clap award for this. Yay! But with that to the side, it is a lot different from what we normally get. So if that's the genre that you like, this probably won't be the book for you. However, if you want to see the interplay in between economies and different planets, and I'm making that sound more boring than what it really was, I don't have the right words myself. I find myself in an odd situation. It's been a very long day. I worked on a chimney, which is not my field of expertise, earlier today. I'm tired from it, and so my words are just not as eloquent as they need to be for me to be able to produce the idea from the brain pan to the tongue to get it out for you. So I'm sorry about that, but essentially it's kind of like a little bit of 1984. We'll put the bite of 87 in there. Some of you will know what I'm talking about on that because it wasn't the bite of 87 or 85. It was indeed 83. And we'll also throw just really, really good dialogue too. In between the characters. The characters did not bleed back and forth in between each other. It's very specific to them in the way that we talk. And so overall, I highly enjoyed the book. And if you want something just a little bit different, but still sci-fi, this has certainly got some sci-fi touches to it, but it's more real world than what we would normally look at and review. So I hope that helps answer the question on that. If you decide to check it out, I'd love to know. Do it at your own time, but I would love to know if you ever do what you think about it, especially about the social impact that these things have with the people, and the where is that fine line in between what people should and do and should not do? What's that fine line? How much assistance should be given in that kind of a world? I'm not talking about real world stuff now. I'm talking about in that book. Where do you think that would be at? I'd really like to know. And for the rest of you guys and gals, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. You are indeed my personal hero. That's right. You. And you. And yeah, even you, Kevin. Back there in the back, I see you. You too. It's cool. So, I don't know which one of these two things that you would decide to choose whenever they get sucked in and pulled over and all that kind of a thing. I don't know. They might even drop in from the top this time, or they might just pop up on the screen. Sometimes things go differently. But if you think we did something good here today and you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you do that thing where you hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed, and the share button if you think somebody would be inflamed or enjoy it, either which way, because the more the merrier. And give it a like if you think we did something nice. Now, I don't know if... I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if things are going to come in from the side or if they're going to fall in from the top, or maybe a combination of both. Sometimes things like that change, but I would like to ask, if you're not subscribed, please do it, especially if you enjoyed anything that we put out in this video. We've got a whole library of stuff that you can check out, and if you think that any of your friends or family, etc. would enjoy it, please make sure you send it to them, even if it's not your cup of tea, and I will thank you so very much for that. Also, if you enjoyed today's video, please hit that like button. It means the world to Scraps. It means the world to spring.
Guys,
It means
guys,
the world to spring.
it does mean the world to me. But also, he's not paying us anymore. Please help us, Madman.